In the quiet recesses of my memory, where shadows dance like forgotten ancestors around a fire, I begin this tale not as a victim, but as the Black Queen, forged in the crucible of betrayal and risen from the ashes of what was once my life. The world knows me now by that name, whispered in boardrooms and echoed in the halls of power, but it was not always so. I was born Ilara Johnson, in the sweltering embrace of a Georgia summer, where the air hung heavy with the scent of magnolias and the unspoken weight of history. My skin, the color of rich earth after a rain, carried the stories of generations who toiled under suns that burned without mercy. From the cradle, I learned the poetry of survival, how to weave dreams from threads of hardship, how to hold pain like a secret flame that warms without consuming. My childhood unfolded in a modest house on the outskirts of Atlanta, where the skyline teased promises it rarely kept for girls like me. Mama was a seamstress, her fingers calloused from needles that stitched together not just fabric, but the fragile dignity of our family. Daddy worked the factories, his back bent like the old oaks that lined our street, whispering tales of lynchings and migrations that brought us north from deeper south. They named me Elara after a star, hoping I'd shine beyond the dim horizons they knew. But stars, I would learn, must first endure the void. School was my sanctuary, a place where words became weapons and knowledge a shield. I devoured books under the flickering light of a single bulb, imagining worlds where black women weren't confined to the margins. Yet even there, the sting of racism seeped in, like the teacher who praised my essays but suggested I aim for practical trades, or the classmates who mocked my kinky hair, calling it untamed wilderness. I absorbed it all, letting it fuel a quiet fire within, a silent vow that one day I would rewrite the narrative imposed upon me. It was in those formative years that I met Marcus. He appeared like a storm on a clear day, tall and broad-shouldered, with a smile that could disarm the wary. We were both 18, fresh out of high school, him working at the local auto shop, me clerking at a diner to save for community college. Our first encounter was mundane. I spilled coffee at the counter, but in his eyes, I saw a reflection of my own ambitions, raw, unpolished, but burning. He courted me with stolen moments, walks along the Chattahoochee River, where we'd talk of futures unbound by the chains of poverty. "We'll build something together, Elara," he'd say, his voice a rumble that resonated in my chest. And I believed him, because in those days, love was the only currency we possessed in abundance. We married young, too young perhaps, in a small ceremony at the church where Mama sang in the choir. The rings were simple bands, bought with scraped-together savings, but they symbolized a pact against the world. Marcus promised to cherish me, to stand as my equal in the battles ahead. I promised the same, vowing to nurture the dreams we shared. Our home was a rented apartment in a neighborhood where sirens wailed like mournful spirits, but we filled it with laughter and plans. I enrolled in night classes, studying business administration, while he climbed the ranks at the shop, his hands greased with the oil of hard labor, years blurred into a rhythm of routine. Children came first: Jamal, with his father's eyes and my curiosity, then little Aisha, whose laughter could chase away the darkest clouds. I balanced motherhood with work, rising before dawn to prepare meals, then heading to my job as a receptionist at a law firm downtown. The attorneys there, mostly white men in crisp suits, treated me with a politeness that masked condescension. "You're so articulate," one would say, as if it were a surprise. I smiled through it, swallowing the bile of humiliation, knowing that each paycheck brought us closer to stability. But stability is a fragile illusion in a world rigged against the likes of us. Marcus began to change, subtly at first. The promotions he chased eluded him, replaced by frustrations he brought home like unwanted guests. He'd snap over small things: the dinner not hot enough, the house not tidy to his liking. I attributed it to stress, to the weight of providing in a system that undervalued black men. "We're in this together," I'd remind him, my hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension coiled there like a spring. Then came the weight gain. After Aisha's birth, my body shifted, curves softening into fullness that society deemed unacceptable. The mirror became an enemy, reflecting not just flesh but the judgments of a world that equated worth with slenderness. Marcus's glances turned critical, his touches less frequent. "You should watch what you eat," he'd mutter, his words slicing deeper than any knife. I tried diets, gyms, but the exhaustion of juggling life left little room for self-care. In my heart, I knew it was more than pounds, it was the erosion of respect. The subtle racism that painted black women as lazy if we didn't conform to impossible standards. Our intimacy withered, replaced by arguments that echoed through thin walls. He'd stay out late, claiming overtime, but the scent of perfume on his collar told another story. I confronted him once, my voice trembling with the pain of betrayal. He denied it, of course, turning the blame on me. "If you took care of yourself, maybe I wouldn't look elsewhere." The words landed like blows, cracking the foundation of our union. Yet I stayed, for the children, for the vows, for the flickering hope that we could reclaim what was lost. It was during one of those bleak periods that the lottery ticket entered our lives. A whim, really. I'd stopped at the corner store after a long shift, the neon sign flickering like a siren's call. $10 from my tip jar, exchanged for a slip of paper bearing numbers chosen at random. I tucked it into my purse, forgetting it amid the chaos of daily survival. Marcus saw it later that evening, chuckling as he held it up. "Dreaming big, huh? Well, if we win, it's ours." But he never checked the name on the back, mine, scrawled in hasty ink as required by the store clerk. The drawing came and went, announced on the evening news as I prepared dinner. Numbers flashed on screen. 7, 14, 23, 36, 45, with the Powerball 12. I froze, the spoon slipping from my hand. Pulling the ticket from my purse, I matched them one by one, my heart pounding like tribal drums. $10 million. The sum was astronomical, a gateway to freedoms we'd only fantasized about. I turned to Marcus, who was lounging on the couch, beer in hand. His eyes widened as I showed him, disbelief giving way to euphoria. We danced in the kitchen, the children joining in, unaware of the magnitude but caught in our joy. But joy, like summer storms, can turn treacherous. The claim process began, lawyers involved to navigate the taxes and anonymity options. Marcus took charge, his demeanor shifting to one of authority. "This is my win," he'd say, though the ticket was in my possession. I let it slide, assuming shared victory. Yet whispers of change crept in. He began spending recklessly, new clothes, a flashy watch before the funds even cleared. Friends I'd never met appeared, slapping his back, calling him the man. Then came the remarriage plot, unraveling like a poorly woven tapestry. I discovered it by accident, rifling through his drawer for spare change. There, amid receipts, was a love letter from her Samantha, a younger woman from his workplace, her words dripping with honeyed promises. My world tilted, the betrayal of visceral ache. When I confronted him, the mask fell. "I'm done with you, Ilara. You're lazy fat." Holding me back, his voice was cold steel, cutting through the air. "With this money, I can start fresh. You won't get a penny from my wealth." He kicked me out that night, the children asleep upstairs. I stood on the porch, bags in hand, rain mingling with tears on my cheeks. The house we'd built together loomed like a monument to my naivety. Class humiliation burned me, the devoted wife, reduced to a discarded relic because fortune smiled and he deemed me unworthy. Racism intertwined, for in his eyes, I saw the internalized poison. Lighter skin like Samantha's equated to elevation, while my darkness anchored him to the struggles he now fled, homeless. I sought refuge with Mama, her arms enveloping me like the roots of an ancient tree. "Child, the storm passes," she murmured, but I felt the tempest raging within. The children cried for their father, and I soothed them with lies of temporary separation. Days blurred into a haze of grief, emotional destruction clawing at my soul. I wandered the streets, invisible to the world, a black woman broken by the very system that promised upliftment. Yet in that abyss, a spark ignited. I remembered the ticket, my name etched upon it. Marcus had never verified. In his arrogance, he assumed control. A week later, everything changed. I contacted the lottery commission discreetly, presenting the evidence. The funds were mine by right, frozen pending verification. Word reached him, and his world crumbled as mine began to rebuild, but this was merely the genesis. The path to becoming the Black Queen would wind through valleys of despair and peaks of triumph, each step carving wisdom into my being. Pain became my teacher, betrayal my forge. I would rise, not for revenge, but for reclamation of dignity, destiny, and the silent fire that no man could extinguish. As I reflect now, from the throne of my empire, I see that moment as the first crack in the chrysalis. The lottery was not just wealth. It was the key to unlocking chains I hadn't fully acknowledged. In the days that followed, I navigated the legal labyrinth, my resolve hardening like diamond under pressure. Lawyers circled like vultures, but I chose wisely, a firm led by a Black woman who saw in me a sister warrior. "This is your power," she said, her eyes mirroring my determination. Marcus fought, of course. Courtrooms became battlegrounds, his accusations flying like arrows. Fraud, manipulation, unworthiness. But evidence stood unyielding: the ticket, the signature, the timestamps. Judges, swayed by facts if not empathy, ruled in my favor. The 10 million minus taxes flowed into accounts under my name. He received nothing. His new life with Samantha dissolving into acrimony and debt. With wealth came choices, but also isolation. Friends who'd vanished during my fall reappeared, palms outstretched. I learned discernment, building walls around my heart. The children adjusted, their resilience a balm to my wounds. Jamal's questions about Daddy pierced, but I answered with truth tempered by love. Sometimes people lose their way, but we find ours. I invested wisely: real estate in burgeoning neighborhoods, stocks in companies uplifting Black communities. Education became my mantra. I returned to school, earning degrees that had eluded me. Nights blurred with study, days with strategy. The weight I'd carried transformed, not through diets but self-acceptance. I embraced my form, curvaceous and powerful, a testament to endurance. Racism persisted, subtle barbs in boardrooms where I was the only melanated face. "Affirmative action, darling," one investor sneered. I met it with poise, my responses laced with intellect that silenced doubters. Class shifted. From humble beginnings to affluence, I navigated the chasm, remembering roots while ascending heights. Emotional destruction lingered, scars etched deep. Therapy sessions unraveled the knots, betrayal's poison, self-doubt's chains. I wept for the girl who'd loved blindly, emerged as a woman armored in wisdom. Rebirth unfolded slowly, like dawn creeping over horizons. In quiet moments, I'd gaze at the stars, recalling Mama's tales. Elara, the moon of Jupiter, distant, enduring. I was that now, orbiting my own destiny, but the journey was far from over. Greater trials awaited, forging the queen I would become. As the echoes of that courtroom victory faded into the hum of a new reality, I found myself standing at the threshold of reinvention, the weight of $10 million not a burden but a scepter in my grasp. The Black Queen was emerging, though I did not yet know her name. She stirred within me like the first tremors of an earthquake, reshaping the landscape of my soul. The world outside remained indifferent, its rhythms unchanged: cars rushing along rain-slicked streets, billboards touting dreams for sale, but inside, a revolution brewed. I had reclaimed what was mine, yet the victory tasted bittersweet, laced with the residue of betrayal that clung like smoke after a fire. In those initial weeks, I retreated to Mama's house, a sanctuary of faded wallpaper and the aroma of colored greens simmering on the stove. The children adapted with the resilience of youth. Jamal buried himself in books, his young mind a sponge for knowledge, while Aisha drew pictures of families whole and unbroken. I watched them with a heart swollen by love and guilt, wondering if my choices had scarred them irreparably. Nights were the hardest, when silence amplified the ghosts, Marcus's voice mocking my body, his hands pushing me toward the door. Emotional destruction was a sly thief, stealing sleep and planting seeds of doubt. Was I enough? Could a woman shattered by family betrayal piece herself together into something formidable? Therapy became my anchor, sessions in a modest office where Dr. Lena, a sister with locks cascading like vines, listened without judgment. Pain is a portal, Elara, she'd say, her voice a soothing balm. Walk through it, and you'll find power on the other side. I poured out the humiliations, the class divides that made me feel lesser in my own home. The racism that whispered I was unworthy because my skin absorbed the sun's kiss too deeply. Marcus's words replayed, lazy, fat, as if my fullness was a crime against his newfound status. But Dr. Lena challenged me to reframe. Your body carried life, endured labor. It's a vessel of strength, not shame. Slowly, I began to see myself anew, curves as contours of survival, darkness as the velvet night from which stars emerge, with the funds secured. I moved us to a new home, a modest but elegant townhouse in a neighborhood where trees arched like guardians over manicured lawns. It was a step up from the cramped apartment, yet I chose restraint, wary of the pitfalls wealth could bring. Investments flowed like rivers. I poured money into Black-owned businesses, funding startups that empowered communities long overlooked. One was a tech firm developing apps for financial literacy in underserved areas. Another, a boutique celebrating plus-size fashion for women of color. Each venture was a brick in my rebuilding, a defiance against a system that had tried to bury me, yet betrayal's tendrils reached further. Marcus, stripped of his illusions, lashed out through intermediaries, friends who pleaded his case, claiming remorse. He made a mistake, one said over coffee, his eyes avoiding mine. I listened politely, but my heart had hardened. Wisdom taught me that apologies without change were hollow echoes. Samantha vanished from the picture, her honeyed words souring in the face of reality. I heard whispers of their fallout, her accusations mirroring my own pain. In a twisted irony, I pitied her, another casualty in the war of egos. Racism reared its head in subtler forms as I navigated affluence. At galas for philanthropists, I was the anomaly, the black woman in a sea of pale faces, my gown-hugging curves they eyed with curiosity or disdain. How did you come into your fortune? One socialite asked, her smile a veneer over suspicion. I replied with poise, through perseverance and a touch of fate. But inside, the humiliation burned. Class intersected, for wealth did not erase the markers of my origins. It amplified them, making me a target for those who saw my rise as an intrusion. I channeled the fire into action, founding a nonprofit for single mothers of color, providing scholarships and counseling. The work was cathartic, each success story a mirror to my own rebirth. One woman, Tanisha, reminded me of my younger self betrayed by a partner, struggling to feed her kids. I mentored her, watching as she bloomed into a business owner. You saved me, she said once, tears glistening. But no, I thought. We save ourselves, with a hand extended from those who've walked the path. As months turned to seasons, I explored the world beyond Atlanta's confines. A trip to New York where skyscrapers pierced the heavens like spears of ambition. I walked Harlem's streets, feeling the pulse of history, Langston Hughes's verses echoing in my mind, a reminder that dreams deferred could explode into brilliance. There, I attended seminars on wealth management, rubbing shoulders with moguls who shared tales of ascent. One, a black entrepreneur named Khalid, became a confidant. His story mirrored mine, betrayal in business, racism in boardrooms. We rise despite, not because, he said over dinner, his laugh rich with resilience. Back home, the children thrived. Jamal excelled in school, his interest in science blooming under my encouragement. I enrolled him in STEM programs, watching as he dissected ideas with the precision of a surgeon. Aisha discovered dance, her body moving with a grace that belied her youth. I attended recitals, my heart swelling as she twirled a living poem of joy. Yet shadows lingered. They asked about their father less, but the absence was a quiet ache. I facilitated supervised visits, monitoring from afar, ensuring his toxicity didn't seep into their lives. Internally, the transformation deepened. I shed not pounds, but layers of self-doubt. Yoga became ritual, my mat canvas for meditation where I confronted the pain. Poetic reflections filled journals. From the soil of sorrow, I bloom, petals unfurling in defiant color, The silent fire grew, a furnace forging resolve. I rejected diets imposed by a society that hated my form. Instead, nourishing body and spirit with intention, fresh foods from community gardens, walks in parks where birds sang anthems of freedom, but challenges mounted. A lawsuit from Marcus's distant relatives, claiming entitlement to the winnings. Court again, a familiar arena, but this time I entered as warrior, not wounded. My legal team dismantled their case, exposing greed masked as kinship. Victory reinforced my power, but it stirred old wounds. Family betrayal extended beyond spouse into bloodlines that valued coin over connection. In quieter moments, I pondered destiny. Was the ticket a random gift or divine intervention? Mama believed the latter, her faith a steadfast light. God don't make mistakes, child. This is your calling. I began to see it so, using wealth to dismantle barriers. I sponsored art exhibits celebrating Black women, their bodies portrayed in all glorious forms, defying the narratives that diminished us. One evening, as sunset painted the sky in hues of fire, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city. Atlanta sprawled like a tapestry of triumphs and trials. I felt the Queen's crown settling upon my brow, invisible yet weighty. The rise was underway, but greater heights beckoned, with storms yet to weather. Emotional layers peeled away, revealing core strength. I dated tentatively, not for completion but companionship. One suitor, a professor named Darius, appreciated my intellect, our conversations weaving philosophy and passion. Yet I guarded my heart, wisdom dictating caution. Community embraced me. I spoke at events, sharing my story since details of the lottery, focusing on resilience. Betrayal breaks, but it also builds, I'd say. Voices murmuring agreement. Class humiliation faded as I claimed space among elites. My presence a statement. We belong. Racism persisted. A persistent fog. At a conference, a panelist dismissed my input with a patronizing wave. I countered with facts, my voice steady, fire contained. Applause followed, a small victory in the ongoing war. Rebirth was multifaceted, professional, personal, spiritual. I traveled to Africa, tracing roots to Ghana, where shores whispered of ancestors stolen. Standing on castle ramparts, I wept for losses, vowed to honor legacies. Back, I expanded investments, a media company amplifying Black voices, countering mainstream erasure. Success bred envy. Whispers of lucky undermined my efforts. I ignored, focusing on impact. Children grew, their innocence tempering my edges. Jamal's first invention, a gadget aiding elders, filled me with pride. Aisha's dances told stories of heritage, yet the past knocked. Marcus appeared one day, disheveled, pleading forgiveness. I was wrong, Elara. His eyes held regret, but I saw manipulation. Healing comes alone, I replied, closing the door softly, a final severance. In that closure, freedom bloomed. The Black Queen stood tall, her narrative shifting from pain to power, but the saga continued, with new betrayals and ascents awaiting. With the door closed on Marcus's plea, a chapter sealed itself in the annals of my heart, allowing space for new narratives to unfold. The Black Queen, now more defined in her contours, surveyed her kingdom with eyes sharpened by experience. Wealth had opened doors, but it was wisdom that taught me to discern which thresholds to cross. The silent fire within burned steadily, illuminating paths once shrouded in doubt. I stood at the precipice of expansion, where personal rebirth intertwined with communal upliftment, and the scars of betrayal transformed into maps guiding my ascent. In the wake of that encounter, I immersed myself deeper into philanthropy, channeling resources into education initiatives for Black youth. I established scholarships in Mama's name, honoring the woman whose quiet strength had been my foundation. The first recipients were announced at a gala I hosted, the ballroom alive with melodies of jazz and the chatter of allies. There, amid crystal chandeliers and tailored suits, I felt the weight of representation, a Black woman wielding power in spaces designed to exclude her. Yet racism lingered like an uninvited guest. Subtle glances murmured doubts about my sudden success. Lottery luck, one donor whispered, as if intellect played no part. I met it with grace. My speech a tapestry of poetry. From the seeds of struggle, empires grow. Rooted in the soil of our ancestors' tears, class humiliation echoed in these circles, where old money viewed my nouveau-rich status with suspicion. I navigated it by forging alliances with like-minded souls, other women of color who'd shattered glass ceilings, their stories resonating with mine. One, Vanessa, a tech mogul from Chicago, became a mentor. Over brunches overlooking cityscapes, we'd dissect strategies, her laughter a reminder that joy could coexist with ambition. Betrayal tempers us, she said, her eyes holding the wisdom of battles won. Through her, I learned to diversify, venturing into venture capital, funding innovations that addressed systemic inequities, but emotional destruction's remnants surfaced unexpectedly. A dream one night, Marcus's face morphing into those of past oppressors, his words a chorus of degradation. I awoke sweating, heart racing, the pain a phantom limb. Dr. Lena guided me through it, unpacking layers, how family betrayal compounded generational trauma, how racism internalized made me question my worth. Reclaim your narrative, she urged. I did, through writing. Journals evolved into essays, shared anonymously online, resonating with thousands. Women messaged me, their tales mirroring mine, husbands lost to ego, bodies shamed, spirits crushed. In their voices I found solidarity, a chorus amplifying my own. The children became my compass. Jamal, now 12, delved into robotics, his bedroom a lab of circuits and dreams. I supported him fiercely, enrolling him in elite programs where he was often the only black face. They stare, Mom, he confided once. I held him, sharing my own stories, teaching resilience as armor. Your brilliance outshines their ignorance. Aisha, at 10, pursued ballet, her lithe form defying gravity. Recitals brought tears. In her pirouettes, I saw my rebirth mirrored grace born from grid. Travel became a ritual of renewal. I journeyed to Paris, wandering cobblestone streets where history whispered of revolutions. The Eiffel Tower at dusk, aglow like a beacon, reminded me of my own illumination. There, I met artists who celebrated Black femininity in canvases bold and unapologetic. Inspired, I commissioned pieces for my home, walls adorned with images of queens curvaceous, dark-skinned, crowned in glory. It was a declaration. My body, once weaponized against me, now a throne. Back in Atlanta, business boomed. My media company launched a podcast series, Voices from the Margins, featuring stories of triumph over adversity. Episodes poured out pain and power, listeners multiplying like stars in the night sky. Success attracted suitors, investors, partners, romantics. Darius persisted, his courtship a gentle pursuit. Dates unfolded in museums, discussions weaving art and activism. You're a force, Hilara, he'd say, his touch tentative, respectful. I allowed vulnerability, but guarded betrayal's lesson etched deep, yet storms gathered. A scandal erupted when a tabloid unearthed the lottery details, twisting my story into sensationalism. From rags to riches, betrayed wife's revenge, paparazzi hounded, flashing lights invading privacy. Marcus resurfaced in interviews, painting himself victim, me villain. She stole my win, he claimed, his face gaunt with desperation. The public divided, some hailed me heroine, others decried me opportunist. Racism fueled the fire. Online trolls hurled slurs, questioning my intelligence, reducing me to stereotypes. Emotional turmoil surged, a tidal wave threatening to drown. I retreated, Mama's embrace a harbor. Stand tall, child. Ancestors watch. I did, countering with a press release, poetic, unflinching. Wealth is not theft when it's rightfully claimed. Rise is not revenge, but rightful destiny. The backlash waned. Support swelling from communities who'd endured similar erasures. In the aftermath, I fortified boundaries, enhanced security, selective engagements. The experience birthed advocacy. I lobbied for privacy laws protecting lottery winners, especially minorities vulnerable to exploitation. Class dynamics shifted. I mentored emerging entrepreneurs, sharing pitfalls of sudden affluence, rebirth deepened spiritually. I explored faith's African traditions blending with Christianity, rituals honoring forebears, full moon ceremonies in my garden, incense curling like prayers, grounded me. Silent fire evolved into vocal power. Speeches at conferences drew crowds, my words weapons against injustice. Children witnessed my evolution, Jamal emulating my drive, Aisha my poise. Family night stories around the fire pit wove bonds unbreakable, but destiny called for more. A political whisper, run for office, amplify change. I considered heart-stirring. One evening, as rain pattered like applause, I reflected. The Black Queen, crowned in trials, prepared for greater realms. Trials persisted. A business partner betrayed, embezzling funds. Discovery shattered trust, echoing Marcus's deceit. Legal battles ensued, my team relentless. Victory reclaimed losses, but the wound reminded, vigilance eternal. From ashes, innovation, stricter protocols, ethical investing. Empire grew, real estate portfolio spanning coasts, empowering affordable housing. Romantically, Darius proposed under starlit skies. I hesitated, wisdom dictating time. Let's build first, I said. He understood. Our bond strengthening. Community work expanded. Clinics for mental health in Black neighborhoods. Addressing destruction I'd known. As years hinted at turning, I saw legacy forming not in gold, but impact. The rise continued, with horizons vast. The rain that evening, tapping a rhythm against my window, seemed to echo the pulse of a life remade. Each drop a testament to the storms I had weathered and the rivers I now forged. The Black Queen, as I had come to embrace her fully, stood not on a pedestal but in the fertile earth of my own making, rooted in pain yet blooming with purpose. The silent fire within had grown into a beacon, casting light on paths I once feared to tread. Atlanta, with its sprawling dreams and shadowed histories, remained my anchor, but the world beyond beckoned, a canvas vast enough to hold the ambitions of a woman reborn. The political whisper that had stirred in my heart took form as a clarion call. A local councilwoman, a fierce advocate for equity, approached me at a community event, her eyes gleaming with conviction. "Elara, your voice could shift tides in the city," she said, her words planting seeds in soil already tilled by resolve. I considered the weight of public office, the scrutiny, the compromises, but also the power to dismantle systems that had crushed so many like me. Racism, classism, the subtle knives of betrayal. I had faced them all and emerged not just whole, but formidable. So I began to explore, attending town halls, studying policy, my nights filled with the prose of governance rather than poetry alone. The children, my North Stars, grounded this ambition. Jamal, now a teenager, had built a robot that won regional awards, his ingenuity a mirror to my own reinvention. Yet he faced challenges, peers who dismissed his brilliance as affirmative action luck, echoing the slights I endured. I sat with him, sharing tales of my battles, teaching him to wield intellect as a sword. Aisha, blossoming into adolescence, found her voice in spoken word poetry, her performances weaving narratives of heritage and resilience. Watching her on stage, her words slicing through silence, I saw the legacy I was crafting not just for them, but for every child who dared to dream beyond their circumstances. My empire expanded, a tapestry of investments and advocacy. The media company flourished, its documentaries exposing inequities in housing and education, earning accolades and enemies in equal measure. One film, tracing the ripple effects of redlining, sparked national discourse. Critics, mostly older men cloaked in privilege, labeled it divisive. I countered in interviews, my voice steady. Truth divides only those who fear it. The backlash was fierce. Online forums erupted with vitriol, my blackness again a target. Yet support surged, from communities who saw their stories reflected, their pain validated. Each letter of gratitude, each tearful thank you at screenings, was a brick in the fortress of my purpose. Betrayal struck again, this time in business. A trusted advisor, one I'd mentored, siphoned funds from the nonprofit. Discovery came like a blade to the gut, echoing Marcus's treachery. I confronted her, not with rage but with the cold clarity of a queen. "You stole from those we serve," I said, her excuses crumbling under my gaze. Legal action followed, funds recovered, but the wound lingered, a reminder that trust, like wealth, must be guarded. I tightened oversight, implemented audits, turning pain into progress. The nonprofit emerged stronger, its programs expanding to include job training for formerly incarcerated women. A nod to cycles broken. Romantically, Darius remained a steady presence, his patience a counterpoint to my caution. We traveled together to New Orleans, where jazz spilled like wine from street corners, and history whispered of resilience. Over beignets, he spoke of building a life together, not as savior but partner. "You're my equal, Elara," he said, his hand warm over mine. I softened, allowing love to seep through cracks in my armor, but I held firm to independence. Marriage, if it came, would be on my terms, a union of two whole beings, not halves seeking completion. Racism's shadow persisted, woven into the fabric of my rise. At a national conference for philanthropists, a panelist questioned my credentials, his tone dripping with condescension. "What qualifies you to lead such ventures?" The room stilled, eyes on me. I rose, my voice a blade wrapped in velvet. "My qualifications are my survival, my intellect, and the communities I uplift." "What are yours?" Applause followed, but the sting remained, a reminder of the battles fought daily, often alone. Emotional destruction, though dulled, surfaced in quiet moments. A memory of Marcus laughing with the children, now a distant echo, could still pierce. Dr. Lena's sessions helped, unraveling the knots of trauma. "You're not healing from him, but from the world that shaped his betrayal," she said. I leaned into it, exploring meditation retreats in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where silence taught me to listen to my own strength. Journals filled with reflections from the ashes of betrayal. I forge a crown, each scar a jewel of wisdom. Community became my sanctuary. I hosted dinners for local activists, their stories of resistance fueling my fire. One night, a young mother shared her escape from an abusive marriage, her voice trembling but resolute. I saw myself in her, offering resources and a promise. "You are enough." Her gratitude, a quiet nod, mirrored my own journey from humiliation to empowerment. Travel broadened my vision. In Johannesburg, I walked the streets of Soweto, feeling the pulse of a people who'd toppled apartheid. Museums told of Mandela's endurance, a mirror to my own. I funded a school there, naming it after Aisha, a beacon for girls who, like her, danced toward freedom. Back home, I spoke at universities, weaving personal and political. Betrayal is universal, but so is rebirth. The political path crystallized. I announced my candidacy for city council, a platform to address housing inequities and police reform. Campaigning was grueling, door knocking in neighborhoods where hope hung thin, facing voters skeptical of change. Racism surfaced in coded questions. "Can you represent everyone?" I answered with stories, my life a testament to bridging divides. Class tensions flared. Some saw my wealth as a disconnect. I countered with transparency, sharing my roots, my struggles. Children adapted to the spotlight. Jamal debating policy at dinner, Aisha crafting campaign slogans. Their pride was my fuel, though guilt not had I thrust them into a world too harsh. Yet they thrived, their resilience a legacy unfolding. A setback loomed. A rival candidate, backed by old money, smeared my name, reviving lottery rumors. "She's no leader, just lucky," his ads sneered. I fought back with rallies, my speeches poetic. "Luck is what you call survival when it wears a black face." Crowds roared, but doubt crept in. Was I enough? Darius anchored me, his belief unwavering. "You're rewriting history, Elara, we plan together." His intellect sharpening my strategies. Victory came narrowly. A council seat won. Sworn in, I felt the weight of ancestors, their whispers urging me forward. The Black Queen, now public servant, stood taller, her fire a lighthouse for others, but challenges awaited, as power drew new betrayals and battles. The oath of office, spoken beneath the vaulted ceiling of Atlanta's City Hall, resonated in my bones like a hymn from the ancestors, each word a vow to wield power for those who'd been silenced. The Black Queen, now councilwoman, stood at a crossroads where personal triumph met collective responsibility. The silent fire that had carried me through betrayal and rebirth now burned for a city fractured by inequity, its pulse a rhythm I aimed to steady. Yet, as I stepped into this new arena, I felt the weight of eyes, some hopeful, others predatory, watching a Black woman dare to reshape the landscape of power. The council chambers were a battleground cloaked in civility, where policy debates masked deeper struggles of race and class. My first proposal, a housing initiative to preserve affordable units in gentrifying neighborhoods, sparked resistance. Colleagues, mostly men with ties to developers, cloaked their opposition in fiscal concerns, but I saw the truth in their guarded glances, a challenge to their dominion. This city thrives when all its people have a home, I argued, my voice a blend of steel and silk, honed by years of navigating dismissal. Community support rallied, residents packed meetings, their stories echoing mine. Displacement, dreams deferred. The measure passed narrowly, a victory carved from persistence, but it taught me the cost of change. Enemies made, alliances strained. Racism was a constant undercurrent, subtle yet suffocating. A fellow councilman, his smile practiced, once remarked, "You're quite persuasive for someone so new to this." The pause before new carried the weight of my blackness, my womanhood, my audacity to exist in his space. I met it with a gaze that spoke of battles won. Persuasion comes from truth, not tenure. The room shifted, allies nodding, but the sting lingered, a reminder that every step forward demanded armor. Class humiliation surfaced too. Whispers of my lottery origins followed me like shadows, as if wealth negated my roots. I countered with transparency, hosting town halls in the neighborhoods I'd risen from, sharing meals with families who knew hunger as I once had. At home, the children anchored me. Jamal, now 16, balanced academics with activism, leading a youth group advocating for STEM equity. His debates at dinner, sharp and insightful, challenged my perspectives, filling me with pride and humility. Aisha, 13, wove her poetry into protests, her words a clarion call against injustice. Yet the public eye strained them. Paparazzi lingered near school, hungry for scandal. I shielded them fiercely, hiring security, teaching them to navigate scrutiny. We're a team, I told them, our nightly rituals storytelling, laughter fortifying our bond. Guilt gnawed though. Had my ambition exposed them too soon? Their resilience answered. Jamal's inventions, Aisha's verses, proof of legacy taking root, my empire grew. A constellation of ventures reflecting my vision. The media company launched a streaming platform, amplifying Black stories globally. A documentary on maternal health disparities won awards, its raw truths sparking policy talks. Critics predictably labeled it too focused on race. I responded in editorials. Ignoring race ignores reality. The platform's success drew investors, but with them came betrayal's familiar sting. A partner, charming and ambitious, manipulated contracts to siphon profits. Discovery cut deep, echoing past wounds. I confronted him, my voice cold fire. You mistook my trust for weakness. Legal action followed, swift and decisive. Funds restored. The lesson hardened me, refining my instincts. Trust sparingly, verify relentlessly. Darius remained my haven, his love a steady current. We traveled to Havana, where salsa rhythms and vibrant murals stirred my soul. Over mojitos, he spoke of legacy. You're building something eternal, Elara. His proposal lingered, a ring offered months prior, still unanswered. I loved him, his mind, his heart, but fear of betrayal held me back. Give me time, I said, and he nodded, his patience a gift. We collaborated instead, his expertise shaping my policy work. Our partnership a dance of equals, Emotional destruction, though quieter, surfaced in dreams. Marcus's face now a ghost, mocking my worth. Dr. Lena's sessions peeled back layers. You carry the world's weight, not just his. I explored ancestral healing, attending rituals in Savannah where elders invoked spirits, their chants weaving me into a lineage of resilience. Journals overflowed. My scars are maps, guiding me to sovereignty. Yoga retreats in the Smoky Mountains grounded me, breath aligning with purpose. Community work deepened. I funded a center for Black youth, offering arts and tech training, a sanctuary where dreams could breathe. At its opening, a teen named Malik, once homeless, performed a rap he'd written, his words raw with hope. I wept, seeing my younger self in him. My purpose crystallized, uplift the overlooked. Travel expanded my horizons. In London, I spoke at a global summit on equity, my story resonating across borders. A delegate from Nigeria shared her own betrayal, her strength mirroring mine. We forged a partnership, funding schools for girls in Lagos named after Mama. Each brick laid was a defiance of systems that diminished us. Politically, challenges mounted. A scandal erupted when a rival leaked doctored emails, implying corruption in my housing initiative. The press pounced, headlines reviving lottery myths. Councilwoman's wealth questions. Racism fueled the narrative my blackness framed as deceitful. I fought back, releasing records, holding press conferences. Truth is my shield, not your lies. Supporters rallied, but doubt crept in. Could I endure this crucible? Mama's wisdom anchored me. Queens don't bow, child. I doubled down, passing a police reform bill, mandating de-escalation training. Protests followed, both for and against, the city a tinderbox. I walked picket lines, my presence a statement. I am here. Unyielding, Darius proposed again, under Atlanta's oaks. His words poetic. Let's build a legacy, side by side. I accepted, tears falling, not from weakness but wholeness. Our engagement was quiet, a promise rooted in mutual respect. As my term progressed, I eyed higher office. Mayoral whispers grew, but power drew shadows. A new betrayal loomed, this time from within my team. The Black Queen, tempered by fire, prepared for the next battle, her crown gleaming with purpose. The council chambers had become my coliseum, a place where words clashed like swords and every victory carved another facet into the crown of the Black Queen. Yet, as I stood at the podium, advocating for a youth employment program, I sensed the gathering storm. Betrayal's familiar scent, sharp and acrid, lingered in the air. My ascent had drawn allies and adversaries in equal measure, and the weight of my role as councilwoman pressed against my shoulders, not as a burden but as a mantle of responsibility. The silent fire within, now a blazing furnace, illuminated my path. But shadows cast by those closest to me threatened to dim its glow. The betrayal came from within my inner circle, a wound deeper than Marcus's or the business partners who'd faltered before. My chief of staff, Nia, a woman I'd trusted implicitly, had been leaking sensitive campaign strategies to a rival mayoral candidate. The discovery was accidental, a misdirected email, its contents a dagger to my trust. Nia, with her quick wit and shared vision for equity, had been a sister in arms, her laughter a balm during late-night strategy sessions. To find her hand in this treachery was to feel the ground shift beneath me. Echoing the night Marcus cast me out, I confronted her in my office, the city skyline a silent witness. Why, Nia? My voice was steady, but the pain bled through. Her excuses, ambition, promises of power crumbled under the weight of my gaze. You betrayed not just me, but the people we serve, I said, and in that moment, the Black Queen spoke, her verdict final. Nia left, her career in ruins, but the scars she left lingered, a reminder that even the closest allies could wield knives. The fallout tested my resolve. The rival candidate, a seasoned politician with deep ties to Atlanta's elite, used the leaks to paint me as erratic, unfit for higher office. Media outlets, hungry for drama, amplified the narrative. their headlines laced with the subtle racism I'd come to expect. Councilwoman's chaos threatened city. Class dynamics resurfaced. My lottery wealth framed as a liability, not a triumph. I countered with transparency, holding a press conference in a community center, surrounded by those I'd uplifted. My story is yours, I said, my words a poetic defiance. From betrayal, I rise. From lies, I build truth. The crowd roared, their faith a shield, but doubt not could I weather this storm without losing myself. The children were my anchor. Jamal, now 17, had secured a scholarship to a prestigious STEM program, his inventions gaining national attention. Yet he faced racism's sting, professors who questioned his merit, peers who whispered slurs. I mentored him through it, sharing my own battles. Your brilliance is your weapon. Wield it unapologetically. Aisha, 14, channeled her fire into activism, her poetry now published in anthologies. Her latest piece, Read at a Rally, spoke of Black women's resilience, her voice a mirror to my own. Yet the public eye weighed on them. I shielded them with therapy, ensuring their spirits remained unbroken. Family nights cooking mama's recipes, laughing over board games remained our sanctuary, a reminder of what I fought for. My empire, though shaken, stood firm. The media company launched a global initiative, partnering with African and Caribbean filmmakers to tell stories of diaspora. A documentary on climate justice in Black communities won international acclaim, its truths piercing the veil of apathy. Critics predictably dismissed it as niche, but audiences worldwide streamed it, their messages flooding my inbox. You've given us a voice. The nonprofit expanded, opening shelters for abused women, each named after a woman from my lineage, their spirits guiding my work. Yet betrayal's echo lingered. I audited every venture. Trust now a currency I spent sparingly. Darius, my rock, stood steadfast. Our engagement, announced quietly to friends, was a beacon of hope. We planned a wedding rooted in heritage African drums, Southern soul, but I insisted on simplicity, wary of spectacle. He supported my mayoral ambitions, his legal expertise sharpening my platform: affordable housing, equitable education, police accountability. Over dinners, we debated policy, his laughter easing the weight of battles. You're rewriting the city's soul, Elara, he said, his eyes warm with pride. Love, once a risk, became my strength. A partnership forged in mutual respect. Racism persisted, a relentless tide. At a national policy summit, a delegate dismissed my housing reforms as handouts for the undeserving. The room tensed, eyes on me. I rose, my voice a blade of fire. Equity is not charity. It's just a sod. Applause followed. But the insult stung, a reminder of the world's resistance to my existence. Class humiliation intertwined. At galas, old money whispered of my unrefined origins. I countered with poise, my presence a statement. I belong unapologetically. Emotional destruction, though tamed, surfaced in quiet moments. Dreams of Nia's betrayal merged with Marcus's. A tapestry of trust broken. Dr. Lena's sessions guided me. You're not defined by their failures, but by your rise. I leaned into ancestral rituals, burning sage under Georgia stars, chanting prayers that wove me into a lineage of warriors. Journals filled with reflections. Betrayal is a forge, shaping me into steel. Retreats in the Appalachian foothills, where silence met strength, grounded my spirit. Community remained my heartbeat. I mentored a new generation of activists, their fire mirroring mine. At a youth summit, a girl named Zora, her eyes bright with dreams, shared her plan to study law. You showed me I can, she said. I embraced her, my purpose renewed. To light paths for others. Travel expanded my vision. In Accra, I walked the shores of Cape Coast, where slave castles stood as silent sentinels. Tears fell for ancestors stolen, their strength now mine. I funded a cultural exchange, bringing Ghanaian artists to Atlanta, their work a bridge across oceans. Back home, I spoke at global forums, my story a testament. From pain, power, from loss, legacy. The mayoral campaign intensified. Door knocking in sweltering heat, I faced voters weary of promises. Racism surfaced in coded fears. Can she lead us all? I answered with stories. My life a bridge between divides. Class tensions flared. My wealth a target. I shared my roots, my struggles, winning hearts one truth at a time. A new threat emerged. A corporate lobby, fearing my reforms, funded attacks. Billboards smeared my name, reviving old wounds. I fought back with rallies, my speeches poetic. They call me lucky, but luck is surviving their hate. Crowds surged, but exhaustion crept in. Was I enough? Darius anchored me. Your movement, Elara, Mama, now frail but fierce, prayed over me. Ancestors carry you, child. Election night loomed, a crucible waiting. The Black Queen, forged in fire, stood ready, her crown a beacon of hope, but destiny held surprises, and new battles beckoned. The eve of the mayoral election was a tapestry of tension and hope, woven with the threads of a life remade. The Black Queen, now a figure etched in Atlanta's consciousness, stood at the edge of a precipice, her silent fire a lighthouse in the gathering storm. The city pulsed with anticipation, its streets alive with the whispers of change, but also the shadows of resistance. I had carried the weight of betrayal, racism, and class humiliation, forging them into armor. Yet the final test loomed, a vote that would measure not just my worth, but the city's willingness to embrace a vision born from struggle. My heart, tempered by years of pain and rebirth, beat with a rhythm that echoed the drums of my ancestors, urging me forward. The campaign had been a crucible, each day a battle against forces that sought to dim my light. The corporate lobby, a hydra of wealth and influence, had escalated their attacks, funding smear campaigns that painted me as divisive, a threat to the status quo. Billboards loomed over highways, their slogans venomous. Elara Johnson, too radical for Atlanta. The racism was coded but unmistakable. My blackness framed as a liability, my wealth a fluke to be distrusted. Class dynamics sharpened the blade. Whispers of my lottery origins resurfaced, as if survival and strategy were less valid than inherited privilege. I countered with rallies in neighborhoods where hope was a scarce commodity. My speeches woven with poetry. They call me radical for loving this city enough to demand its healing. Crowds swelled, their chants a heartbeat, but exhaustion gnawed at my edges. A quiet question. Could I endure the weight of their doubts? The children were my sanctuary. Jamal, now a young man at 18, stood tall at campaign events, his presence a quiet strength. His latest invention, a device for clean water access in underserved areas, had drawn interest from tech giants, yet he faced skepticism from those who saw his brilliance through the lens of race. I guided him, sharing my own scars. Your light blinds their prejudice, son. Aisha, 15, had become a voice for her generation, her poetry performances at rallies igniting crowds. Her latest piece, Roots Unbroken, spoke of Black women rising from ashes, a mirror to my journey. Yet the campaign's toll weighed on them. Late-night calls from school counselors reported their stress. I fortified them with love, therapy, and family rituals. Sunday dinners where we laughed over Mama's recipes, grounding us in heritage. Guilt lingered, though. Had I asked too much of their youth? Darius, my anchor, stood steadfast. Our wedding plans, now set for spring, were a promise of joy amidst chaos. He campaigned beside me, his legal mind dissecting opponents' tactics, his heart a haven for my fears. Over coffee, as dawn painted the sky, he'd say, "You're not just running for mayor, Elara, you're rewriting what's possible." His faith bolstered mine. Yet love brought vulnerability, a fear of new betrayal. I silenced it, choosing trust, our bond a fortress against the world's storms. My empire, a constellation of purpose, shone brighter. The media company launched a global summit, streaming stories of resilience from Black communities worldwide. A panel on economic equity drew thousands, its truths piercing apathy. Critics, as always, sneered too focused on race, they claimed. I responded in editorials. To ignore race is to ignore the wounds we must heal. The nonprofit opened a tech hub for Black youth, its labs buzzing with innovation. Yet betrayal's echo lingered. A board member, swayed by corporate promises, attempted to redirect funds. I uncovered it, my instincts honed by past treachery. You chose greed over legacy, I told him, my voice cold fire. He resigned, the hub preserved, but trust's fragility haunted me. Racism's tide surged. At a televised debate, my opponent, a silver-haired patrician, questioned my fitness to lead, his words dripping with condescension. Can she unite a city so diverse? The audience tensed, sensing the dog whistle. I stood, my voice a blade of truth. Unity comes from justice, not erasure. I've lived the city's divides and risen above them. Applause erupted. But the sting remained, a reminder of battles fought alone. Class humiliation followed. At fundraisers, elites eyed my gown elegant, yet not their brand of refinement with subtle disdain. I met it with poise, my presence a defiance. I am here, undeniable, emotional destruction though quieter. Surfaced in dreams Nia's betrayal blending with Marcus's. A chorus of broken trust. Dr. Lena's sessions anchored me. You're not their failures. Ilara, you're your triumphs. I leaned into rituals, lighting candles under Georgia pines, chanting prayers that wove me into ancestral strength. Journals overflowed. From betrayal's ashes, I carve a throne. Retreats in the Okefenokee swamp, where silence met resilience, grounded my spirit. Community was my lifeblood. I mentored activists, their fire mirroring mine. At a housing rally, a grandmother named Ruth shared her eviction story, her voice trembling but resolute. I embraced her, offering resources, whispering, "You are enough." Her nod mirrored my own rebirth. From humiliation to empowerment. Travel expanded my soul. In Rio, I walked favelas, their vibrancy echoing Atlanta's grit. Community leaders shared stories of resistance, their resilience a mirror. I funded a cultural exchange, bringing Brazilian artists to my city, their murals adorning the tech hub. Back home, I spoke at global forums, my narrative a beacon. From pain, power. From struggle, sovereignty. Election night arrived, a crucible of hope and fear. Polls showed a tight race, my opponent's wealth fueling a last-minute ad blitz. I stood with supporters, the air electric, as results trickled in. Precincts split wealthy areas for him, working class for me. Midnight brought clarity. I won, narrowly, the first Black woman mayor of Atlanta. The crowd roared, tears falling as I spoke. This is our victory. Born from our roots, ancestors whispered approval, their strength in my veins. The oath loomed. But new threats emerged. Corporate interests, stung by defeat, plotted retaliation. A leaked memo hinted at legal challenges aiming to undermine my mandate. Racism and classism intertwined, framing my win as an anomaly to be corrected. Darius held me as doubts surfaced. Your history, Ilara, mama, frail but fierce, prayed. Queen's rise, child. The children, proud, stood ready. The Black Queen, now mayor, prepared to govern, her crown a beacon, her fire eternal. But power's weight drew new battles, and destiny awaited. The morning of my inauguration as Atlanta's first Black woman mayor dawned with a sky ablaze, its hues of crimson and gold a canvas for the legacy I was destined to carve. The Black Queen, crowned not in jewels but in the resilience of my people, stood at the pinnacle of a journey forged through betrayal, racism, and the crucible of rebirth. The silent fire that had sparked in the ashes of Marcus's rejection now roared as a beacon, illuminating a city poised for transformation. Yet, as I stood before the mirror, adjusting the kente cloth draped across my shoulders, I felt the weight of history, not just my own, but that of every Black woman who dared to rise against a world designed to diminish her. This was no mere office. It was a throne, and I, Ilara Johnson, was ready to rule with a heart tempered by pain and a vision etched in fire. The ceremony unfolded in a plaza thronged with thousands, their faces a mosaic of hope and skepticism. The air hummed with gospel choirs, their voices lifting prayers that wove my story into the city's soul. As I swore the oath, my hand on a Bible passed down from Mama's mother, I felt ancestors encircling me, their whispers a chorus of strength. We govern for the unseen, I said in my address, my voice a blend of poetry and power. For the mothers who toil, the youth who dream, the elders whose scars tell our truths. This is our Atlanta, and we will rise together. The crowd roared, a tide of belief. But I saw the shadows, opponents in the wings. Corporate titans plotting to clip my wings before they fully spread. Governance was a battlefield, its terrain more treacherous than the campaign. My first act was a bold one. A comprehensive plan to address systemic inequities, from housing to healthcare to education. I pushed for rent control in neighborhoods bleeding residents to gentrification, for clinics serving Black and low-income communities, for schools where children like Jamal and Aisha could thrive without the weight of prejudice. Resistance was immediate. Council members, tethered to developers, stalled votes, their arguments cloaked in fiscal prudence but reeking of self-interest. Racism surfaced in coded critiques. Her policies favor certain groups, they'd say, as if equity for the marginalized was a zero-sum game. Class humiliation lingered. At elite gatherings, I was the lottery mayor. My wealth a footnote rather than a triumph. I countered with data and stories. My speeches weaving truth. Justice delayed is justice denied. And Atlanta will wait no longer. The children, my heart's compass, navigated their own paths. Jamal, now 19 and a college freshman, majored in engineering, his inventions drawing patents and praise. Yet he faced microaggressions, professors who assumed he'd falter, peers who whispered of quotas. I mentored him, sharing my battles. Your brilliance is their mirror, reflecting what they fear. Aisha, 16, published her first poetry collection. Its verses a clarion call for justice. Her readings packed auditoriums, her voice a flame kindling others. The spotlight weighed, though. I shielded them with therapy and love. Our family nights now with Darius joining sacred rituals of laughter and legacy. Guilt flickered had my rise cost them their innocence, but their strength answered. Their lives a testament to resilience. Darius, my husband since our spring wedding, was my partner in every sense. Our ceremony, steeped in African and Southern traditions, had been a quiet triumph, drums echoing under Georgia oaks, Aisha reciting poetry, Jamal at my side. He stood with me now, his legal mind shaping policy, his heart a haven. You're changing the world, Ilara, he'd say, his touch grounding me. Love, once a risk, was now my strength, a bond unmarred by betrayal's shadow. We dreamed of a future where our work intertwined, his advocacy, my governance building a legacy for generations, my empire, a constellation of impact, shone globally. The media company produced a series on Black women leaders, streamed in 50 countries, its stories shattering stereotypes. Critics predictably called it divisive. I countered, visibility is not division, it's truth. The nonprofit opened community centers across the South, each a beacon for youth and families. Yet betrayal struck again. A city official, once an ally, leaked plans to developers, undermining my housing reforms. Discovery cut deep, echoing past wounds. I confronted him, my voice cold fire. You sold out our people for a seat at their table. He resigned, the reforms preserved, but trust's fragility haunted me. I tightened protocols, my instincts razor sharp, racism's tide never ebbed. At a national mayor's conference, a colleague dismissed my initiatives as urban experiments, his tone dripping with condescension. I stood, my voice a blade. Experiments built this nation on the backs of my ancestors. My work reclaims their legacy. Applause followed. But the sting lingered, a reminder of battles fought alone. Class dynamics persisted. At galas, elite sighed my tailored kente with subtle scorn. I met it with poise, my presence a defiance. I am here. Eternal, emotional destruction, though faint, surfaced in quiet moments. Dreams of Marcus's cruelty, Nia's treachery, blending into a chorus of doubt. Dr. Lena's sessions anchored me. You're not their shadows. Ilara, you're the sun. I leaned into rituals, dancing under full moons with elders, their chants weaving me into ancestry. Journals overflowed. From pain's crucible, I forged eternity, retreats in the Everglades, where silence met strength, grounded my soul. Community was my lifeblood. I mentored a new generation, their dreams my fuel. At a center's opening, a teen named Maya, once homeless, shared her college acceptance, tears in her eyes. You showed me I could, she said. I embraced her, my purpose renewed, to light paths for the unseen. Travel wove my legacy. In Addis Ababa, I walked Ethiopia's highlands, feeling the pulse of a continent unbroken. I funded a tech hub there, named for Jamal, a bridge across oceans. Back home, I spoke at global summits, my story a beacon. From betrayal, sovereignty, from struggle, stars, challenges persisted. A corporate lawsuit aimed to block my reforms, their lawyers wielding wealth like a weapon. I fought back, my team relentless, public support a tide. Victory came, but exhaustion whispered, was I enough? Mama, now a frail oracle, answered, you're their legacy. Child, Darius echoed. Your history. The children, thriving, stood tall. As my term unfolded, I eyed national impact, perhaps a Senate run, to carry Atlanta's lessons further. The Black Queen, forged in fire, stood eternal, her crown a constellation of triumphs. My legacy, carved into time, was not wealth or titles, but the lives lifted, the systems reshaped, the love endured. From a ticket swim to a throne's weight, I had risen, a star undimmed, a queen unbroken, my fire alight for generations to come.